Hi, everyone. Welcome to Author's Corner with Stephanie Carter. I am Stephanie Carter, and we are here today with Mrs. Glynnette Byrom Scott, who has just released a fabulous book called The Day I Marched with Martin, A Day to Remember. And it is a wonderful memoir about her day marching with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in her hometown of Boston, Massachusetts. And so I want to invite Miss Scott to join me. And I'm just so thankful for you being here today to discuss this wonderful time and wonderful day, not only in your history, but in the history of the United States. So thank you so much for joining us, Miss Scott.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here and excited.
Yes, I'm excited too. And you know that we have dealt with a lot in trying to get this book out, and we'll talk about a little bit about that later. But let's first talk about you and what inspired you to write this book, and then we'll talk later about what the book is actually about.
Well, the initial inspiration for writing the book came back in, I'd say, around 2003, 2002, maybe. And as a speech and language pathologist, I worked as a speech and language pathologist. I'm retired now in the Boston Public Schools for several years. And during that time, around Martin Luther King's birthday, I would talk to the children about how I marched with Martin Luther King. And of course, they were fascinated by that. So one day I decided to actually write the story out. And that's what I did. I used, Word on my computer, printed out the
Mhm.
pages, and then I would read the story to them. So it was actually in 2003 that I actually had the papers and I began to just read the story. And then every year after that, I would read the story to them, and they seemed fascinated by it. They were mostly, thinking that Martin Luther King was so long ago and so far off, but to see that someone, they know had marched with them was really exciting to them. So that's how it really started.
Okay, so how were the kids' reaction? You said that they thought that Martin Luther King was so long ago, but what was their reaction to know that you had marched with him?
I got a lot of, you march with Martin Luther King, really? Wow. So they were just fascinated by that fact.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you know what? And you, of course, you're a very, very beautiful woman. And but we need to know, how old were you when you marched with Martin Luther King that day?
When I marched with Martin Luther King back in 1965, I was 11 years old.
Wow. So let's get more into the book because it is a fascinating book about, it goes all the way, it starts with, your father and your mother talking about the things that happened in the South and what the civil rights movement was all about. You were 11 years old, right? You were 11 years old and you went to that march with your father and your sister. So let's talk more about that because that is what is actually in the book.
Mhm. Well, my father was always very much interested in civil rights. He was actually born in Vienna, Georgia, and grew up in Weirton, West Virginia. So he had some knowledge of how Blacks were treated in the South. And he was very much interested in hearing what Martin Luther King had to say. And actually, he would talk to us about Martin Luther King as, when we were younger. So when the opportunity arose and he heard that Martin Luther King was coming to Boston, he decided that this would be a great thing to go to. And for some reason, he decided he would take my sister and me along with him. Um, as it's stated in the book, my mother was a little hesitant about it at first. And, because sometimes when Martin marched, there was violence and all these incidents happened. And I believe, she had that fear, which was very real. She
Mhm.
herself was from Raleigh, North Carolina, and she knew what the South was like for herself. So after, I guess maybe they had discussions behind closed doors, I don't know, but eventually she said it was okay that we could go, and my father took us.
So describe that day. What was the atmosphere like?
Well, there was a lot of excitement around the day. I remember the day; it wasn't a sunny day; it was a very cloudy day with rain threatening. And although the weather wasn't great, I was thinking maybe there wouldn't be a lot of people there, but there were thousands and thousands of people there. And you could just feel the excitement of the crowd, there was a lot of hustle and bustling and just excitement. And that's all I remember, the excitement. I was right there with the excitement. I was in the excitement.
Wow. And you had mentioned that this was the only march that Dr. King had in the Northeast. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. And so
The
this
only one
happened in
held.
1965. And so
Mhm.
this happened 3 years before he was assassinated tragically. What was the reaction when you found out that he had passed away?
Oh, it was awful. Actually, that very night, I was in, we called it junior high. Now they call it middle school.
Hmm.
And I was in a program at my middle school, which is in it was in a basically white area of Boston called West Roxbury. And we were on our way there, and we heard on the radio that he had been shot. So I had to, do this performance at my school with that knowledge in my head. So I was um,
Wow.
I was sad, but I had to go on and do what I had to do. And
Hmm.
at the intermission, there was a parent there, a man actually. He went over to, I was there with my parents at the intermission, and he came over and he told us that Martin Luther King had actually died.
Oh, wow.
So the rest of the evening, it was a very, very solemn um, time. I remember coming home and riding in the car, and we were quiet. There
Hmm.
was just such a sadness and a heaviness, in the car with us. My sister was there, of course, my mother and my father.
Hmm.
And that ride home was just a very, very, very sad, sad time for us. And then, after that, there were events where there was, there were riots across
Right.
the nation as well as
Hmm.
in Boston.
Hmm.
So it was a difficult time. Yeah, even as a, yeah, a junior high school student, it was a difficult time.
Right. Right. Well, the day I marched with Martin Luther King, well, with Martin, a day to remember is your story of an 11-year-old girl that went to an historical event, and this is your story. And so, what do you want people to know or to take from your story in this book?
Well, because it's a historical event, I think it has some historical significance, particularly for the city of Boston, because Martin Luther King did have ties to the city of Boston. So that's one thing that I want people to understand, that, it does have historical significance. And I guess the other thing is that we all have experiences in life. Some of
Mhm.
them are good, some of them are not so good.
Yeah.
But I think there's a time that we can share those experiences. And for me, the fact that I'm sharing this experience and now it's in a book is incredible. So I think other people can maybe look at an experience that they might have had in life and just share it. I think great memories are meant to be shared. Great memories should be shared.
That's right. That's right. And I guess that is a segue to this is your first published book. So how does it feel to be an author, and how did you feel about the whole process from the point that we had the first conversation all the way to when you received those books in the mail for the first time?
I'm just thrilled. To put this book into print was something that I wanted to do. Like I said, it was written back in 2003, and it wasn't immediately at that time that I thought about having it published. But over the years, people would say, they heard the story, different faculty members in my school, they said, you really should get that published. And, I started thinking about that. And then when I retired, my niece said, okay, the time is now to get it published, but the time wasn't right. And through it's so evident to me that the Lord brought the timing perfectly through the Hymns family and getting on line through the pandemic with Philip Carter, and then knowing that you were a publisher. All things just kind of fit together. So when I first spoke to you, I was excited. I was thrilled. I said, "Wow, this is really going to happen." Of course, along the way, I got kind of cold feet, and I wanted to back off and back away, but I continued to press on. People encouraged me. It's always great to have a cheerleading squad behind you. So I had my husband and my sister, my like I said, my niece and my daughters. Go ahead, yeah,
Mhm.
you got to do this, you got to do it.
That's right.
So um, having come to the point where the book has actually been published, and when I received that first copy, I was just over the top. We took videos, we took pictures. It was just a time of celebration, and I just thank God that that point happened. Um, and since then, it's kind of settling in that I'm an author. I hear, people call me an author, and I'm like, me? You're talking to me? But anyway, so it's an exciting process. It has been. There were a couple of bumps along the way, but
Yeah.
here we are.
Here we are. And
Yeah.
so the day I marched with Martin, A Day to Remember, was released on January the 10th. And so what is next for you? Do you plan on releasing more books, or I know that you really want to push this?
I haven't really thought about writing another book at this point. Um, I'm sure there's a possibility that that might happen, but it's not really on the forefront in my mind right now. I just want to, push this book for now and see what the Lord has in store. But He'd have to make it really clear to me that I'd have to do another book.
Well, you know what? This book is going to be a book that you will be able to ride the wave for a very, very long time, because this can be sent out to school children, can be sent to libraries. I mean,
Mhm.
all people, all ages will enjoy this story, because this is, as I said, this is your story, and this is your story in a pivotal role in United States history. So, I want to thank you so much for coming on with me today. Let people know, how can they purchase your book?
The book can be purchased on my website, which is glynnettscott.com. That's two N's and two T's. And it is also available on Amazon.
Amen. Amen. Well, this is about it. I want to thank you so much, Miss Scott, for joining me. Newly published author Glynnette Byrom Scott, with her book, The Day I Marched with Martin, A Day to Remember. Please go out and buy the book at her website, www.glynnettscott.com. And she said two N's and two T's, and then another two T's and Scott. So, and it's also found on Amazon. But thank you so much. And if you do, I believe if you do go to her website, that you will get an autographed copy. I got
Yes.
mine yesterday. I meant to tell you that. So
Great.
I was just like, wow, this is incredible. So thank you so much for joining me, Miss Scott. And thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you again soon on the Author's Corner. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.